Welcome back, everyone, to our episode number 10 of the BEE Chamber podcast. I am super excited to be back. I hope that everyone is doing well. I hope that 2025 has been a good start to the year. For those that have ended your February financial year ends, I hope it's been on a good note, especially on the transformation front. All of the initiatives have been wrapped up and you're good to go for the new year of 2025. And in terms of today's episode, I'm super excited to be talking to two of my colleagues at the BEE Chamber from the Bursary team. Roz, Chidozie, welcome. Are you doing well?
Thank you, Yanil. Very good.
Nice, thank you for having us, We're doing good.
No, awesome. It's great to have the team here. It's great to have them in our session today. And just before we get started with our topic of today's discussion is I want to mention to our audience, if you haven't seen the BEE Chamber magazine issue number 5, please make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn and have a look at the link. It's available for download on our LinkedIn page, and you're most welcome to have a read over some good content in the BEE Chamber magazine issue number 5. So, coming to today's topic, we are talking about Human Rights Day as well as education. The month of March, we celebrate Human Rights Day in South Africa, and one of the key components of this day is also looking at the rights of humans as well as the right to education. And just touching on that topic of education, you guys are both well experienced in the sphere of bursary management. Tell us a bit about what do you guys do in that space? I'll start with you, Ross. And if you're the manager in the department, what do you do there?
Thank you, Neil. We obviously work as a very good bursary team, so I can speak on behalf of our other ladies as well who aren't in the meeting today or the podcast today. And what we do is we manage bursaries for a number of corporate sponsors throughout South Africa, and we do their skills development and SED spend and make sure that the funding goes towards students that are in need of bursaries to get ahead in their careers and at university. It's actually a very lovely job, and one can get quite passionate about it as well, because you get to meet not only a lot of very academic people through the universities and tertiary institutes, but a lot of incredibly wonderful students who are mostly very, very grateful for the help that we extend to them through our sponsors' funding. So that's...
No, awesome. No, thanks for that, Ross. And Chidozie, I know you deal a lot with the students. I've heard you before speaking to students, getting details and information from them. Is that the role that you fulfill?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Neil. I fulfill the role of the bursary liaison officer. So as Ross mentioned, I am the front man. I engage a lot with the universities, with the students. I'm the one who I'm their point of contact between us, the chamber, and the university. So it's quite an interesting job to meet a lot of people, because I am someone who's very social, so I kind of enjoy doing that type of stuff.
No, great stuff. And education is a very powerful tool for the human being. And speaking about Human Rights Month and Human Rights Day, and also linking it up to education, Ross, from your perspective, how important do you think that education is actually a human right? Do you see it as a human right?
Absolutely, I do. It's and it actually is an incredible well of opportunity for so many students today, and has been for the last 30 years, is the ability to be able to step forward and do something about what they're dreaming about and get into the economy, study a subject. Some of them might have wanted to be doctors, and they have the opportunity now, and that's where we like to come in and step in and help them get ahead with that. So certainly for human rights, that's a big thing, is opportunity today to study at that tertiary level.
No, definitely. And I think that, sometimes we take it for granted that, there's always going to be the opportunity for you to go and study. When you start to look out for those opportunities, they're really difficult to find, especially when it relates to funding. Funding is not an easy sort of, area, or you can't just find funding very quickly. And I know that you guys work a lot with the students, and you come across a whole different types of stories and experiences that they have gone through to actually obtain the funding. So Chidozie, just on that, what are the big challenges that you find students face, when trying to look for funding? They apply to many institutions to try to obtain the funding. And what are the challenges? Are they just getting rejected and they move on? Is that the big thing?
The biggest challenge I've faced or I've encountered is the lack of response.
Okay.
Because most of the time the students, they tend to approach the university because they are they're the main focus when it comes to looking for funding. And you can imagine how long the list is of different students looking for funding, and then keeping that communication does tend to be a bit of a challenge with the university. So the main thing I've noticed is the lack of communication. They want to get the guarantee that if I apply, if I don't get it, let me know. If I do get it, also let me know. I hope to get it, but if I don't, that way I can know what to do in the future. Should I approach elsewhere? Should I look somewhere else? So I feel like it's just mostly the lack of communication coming from the university side to the students, which is why we play a vital role, because then we actually assist the universities with that type of communication, because we directly engage with the students. We let them know that, hey, this is the bursary opportunity, this is what's happening, did you get it, we help just make that,
And that's good. I mean, and I'm just thinking in my mind, it just being that person in those shoes applying for funding, you're applying to multiple different entities and nobody's getting back to you. You don't know where you stand, you don't know what to do. Should we then apply elsewhere, or should we just wait and see? So it's good to know that we play that role of communication. But just on that note, I mean, Chidozie, you mentioned that, the universities, we play a role in terms of then supporting and giving feedback. Why do you think that the universities don't give the feedback? It's just lack of interest? I'm just trying to understand. Do you think that's the case?
I don't think it's
It's really unfair. I would say that would
thousands
be really
and thousands of
too much
students
to respond to. Too many
and I don't think that the university staff, sorry to interrupt you, I don't think that the university staff structure moves with the number of students. So if like for example, this year, there was approximately 33% more intake. And then with the withdrawal of most of the NSFAS funding, you can imagine, we all know what happened at a lot of the universities and what have you.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of frustrated students out there. And also the students don't know that they actually should apply to the university FinAid and bursary office, because the university per se doesn't know that they need funding.
Okay.
If they apply, they register and apply for their course. There's nothing on there that says, do you need funding?
Okay, I see.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And if there is something that says, do you need funding, can you imagine how long it takes to go through those forms that are filled in, those embedded forms, and put those to the side? Those all need bursaries.
Exactly.
Very difficult,
So I think, maybe some of the biggest challenges that you pick up is the infrastructure within the university to communicate and to provide information. That's also one of the big challenges. And then also, from a student perspective, not knowing what to do. They're not really knowing what the rules are in terms of certain courses and how, and the steps to take, exactly that. So I think that's also, some of the biggest challenges, and I think education again is key. Again, we're speaking about bursaries, but education is not only in terms of a qualification, but just general information. Exactly. General information is also quite critical for students to be aware of, and sometimes you feel for them to think, I hope they're going to find their way. And they eventually get there, but imagine the struggles of trying to get there. They've gone through so many different departments, people, asking questions, not getting responses, and then eventually finding their way. But it could have been a bit more simplistic if there was educational platforms available to say, this is how you go about these things. All right, and then speaking about, the challenges, but then also the benefits. I mean, students going through the qualifications, obtaining their qualifications leads to then that hope of, gaining a job. I mean, that's the ultimate outcome here of why majority of individuals study or either starting a business. Ross, from your side, how do you see, employment linked to human rights? Do you think that everybody should have employment?
I think it would be fabulous if they all did. I don't know if our economy can stretch to that, but it would be absolutely fabulous. And I think it would also be a great motivator for the students also to know that there's a possibility of employment at the end of the study period. And what has happened over the last few years is that companies who are funding and spending money on skills development and SED are also looking at return on investment. So they're looking to the future looking at the students today, thinking, okay, are we going to be able to employ them in a few years' time? So those wheels are moving. The mechanism is starting to move with a lot of the companies. So they are progressively thinking of what's going to happen to these students. And we do, whenever we have our webinars and chat to our sponsors, we try and bring about the human element, because those students need a good supportive structure with bursaries, not just their tuition paid.
Of course.
They need to be supported. So that's all part of human rights as far as I'm concerned. People need to eat, to sleep in a decent, comfortable space, and know that they have some future that they can look forward to, not just the drone and the mills going for the year.
No, of course. I mean, and I've heard you and also other colleagues in a number of sessions and webinars that we can't just look at the tuition. It needs to be that entire support structure, because that's going to lead to success. Without that, you're going to have a situation of somebody just getting their fees being paid for but not being able to live, and that's going to compromise the end goal.
And it does.
And exactly, it would definitely compromise that end goal. So again, to your entities out there planning your bursary strategies, also take note of what Roz has mentioned now. Look at the entire picture, rather look at the the quality of the support rather than just the quantity. I know a lot of companies want to run a lot of numbers and say that we've supported 100 bursary students, whereas none of them have passed, for example, versus focusing it on 20 or 30 and getting all of those individuals through a system and making sure that they're supported. That also makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference in terms of the impact that it's going to have. Chidozie, from your side, I mean, speaking of the way companies think, strategize, and also touching on what Roz mentioned, do you find that or would you think that companies would be in a better position if they think about the future and not just for that year? Again, once the person completes the bursary, I mean, you want to make sure that they're employed.
Yes.
Do you think companies are really thinking about that, or are they just thinking for that year, we've got a budget, we want to spend it on students, and we don't really care if they pass or not? Do you think companies are thinking like that?
Like Ross mentioned, she mentioned return on investment. So I feel like companies need to really start thinking about that, because it's one thing to say you funded a student, but then once a student graduates, what then? They're just going to add on to the statistics of unemployment rate, which is not really making a difference. Whereas if you think of it in a proactive way of, yes, I funded the student, maybe I have a spot for them in the company, they can come work for us. Also, companies should realize that students know who their sponsors are, because you make it a point to, you notify the students that this is your sponsor. There's a sense of, if I can say, loyalty and patriarchy when you know that I am going to work for that company who helped put me through school.
Of course, yeah.
So if the companies, different companies thought that way, then maybe,
No, I completely agree. I think that that sustainability approach needs to be adopted. Thinking of the future not just for that year or the second year, but rather going through a process of vetting students to say, we want to support your studies, but we want you to come and work for us as well. We want to build a talent pipeline also, and this is why we want to support students in this specific industry. And sometimes students will be happy to take that on. Some of the students will be maybe thinking, sure, I really want the degree just to start a business on my own. And again, that's fine. At least, the communication taking place will know where you stand and how you're going to progress going forward. I think that, as our economy is going through challenges, especially around unemployment, focusing on youth, that type of guarantee to students does give them quite a lot of hope to say, after I'm done, I just need to do well, I'm going to be then employed by this organization. Alright, so that's good to hear. I mean, we want to encourage companies to do that. We want to make sure that they are starting to think differently. And I know that the team also works in terms of the information that you need to gather from students from a PE verification perspective. How's that process been for the team? Is it challenging? Do you always get information from students? Roz, maybe let me start with you.
It's actually, I think it originally started off fairly challenging, but eventually it becomes just such a streamlined process, and it's all so clearly set out now that when we ask for our documentation from the students, with their Chidozie will send them a very detailed email showing exactly what to do on each form, so you can't really make a mistake. And we try and keep it simple, so not reams and reams and reams of paper for them. They already have enough stress in their life. They're trying to get funding for the year, and they've got their classes coming up, and the last thing they need to do is have all this other pressure to fill in 9 documents that we require for verification. But generally, no, they're very good. They seem to, okay, we're getting our bursary, we'll do this properly.
Yeah.
So there are a few, we not very many.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. I'm glad that there's a process in place. So Chidozie, you've faced any challenges? I mean, do the students give you the documents on the time, or?
Just to touch base on what Ross said. In the beginning, yes, it was a major issue to get documents. But now it's pretty easy. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but it's less challenging because. And it's gone so positive because now the universities are even willing to assist us get documents. So they don't have to approach the students, they can just approach them directly. So it just helps us a lot there.
Alright. Well, that's great to hear. So for those that are not familiar, under the skills development element, there is this category called bursaries for black students at higher education institutions, and companies implement initiatives for these types of students. And then at the time of verification, when you're applying for your B certificate, there's information required from the students. So always make sure that if you're going to embark on a journey for bursaries or engage with bursary students, make sure that you also get the documentation that's going to be needed for the time of verification. I'm listening to my 2 colleagues, and I know that we've got our processes in place, but out there, I don't know if the other bursary administrators or other entities that are involved in the space actually have this sort of process in place. And then when it comes to the time of verification, they start running around looking for information, and then they start blaming the students to say that the students are not sending things on time, they are delaying us, they're not giving us the correct documentation. But I think it's also about that planning, the planning aspect, having it upfront. Rose, like you mentioned, a list of information that is going to be sent through the students. And then just coming to mind now, I know that we funded one of our students, his name was Cosmas. I'm sure you both remember Cosmas,
Yes,
I think he was studying at the Tshwane University of Technology. And for those that have downloaded our magazine or intended to download our magazine, we actually had an interview with him. I was more intrigued about him himself, not about what he studied. I was more intrigued about how he developed a program in terms of assisting women, and that is something that's going to be quite big. So read about it in our article that was issued in our B Chamber magazine issue number 5. But those are the types of individuals that we see really sticking out. And I want to ask Roz, do we get a lot of those? We've seen it once, but I'm sure there's many others.
He stood out because, and he was very proud of what he had done, which was awesome. And also the sponsor was very proud of him and very supportive, so that was obviously stood out. But I must say, generally, our students are actually awesome. They really are. Some of them just will send the most charming emails telling us what they've done or what they're going to be doing, or else they will say, I just wanted to say thank you so much to you and the sponsor for assisting me. So there is an extraordinary amount of gratitude, and they're very aware of the fact that they are being supported and helped along the way, and that makes us want to continue supporting and helping them.
Yeah.
I hope that answers
what
you were saying.
There's, I think with him, he just stood out. And I think there's many of the individuals that are out there that's also standing out in their own way. I don't think that everybody's the same. So I think that everybody's got their own path, their own journey, everyone's going to have their own impact. It's just that with him, it just really struck out in terms of what he's doing, and I think that's something that resonated with me to say, wow, we've actually funded and assisted and funded this individual. And I think those that are also listening or watching today, to make sure that when you are going to embark on this journey of bursary support, you're changing lives. you are going to be providing a big impact on the individual that you're supporting. And this could really change the landscape of that person's life. And I think sometimes we take that for granted when making a decision as a business. Those decisions have huge impact on the individuals that we support. All right, so before we start wrapping up, I want to ask both Roz, Chidozie, any advice for students, any advice for business leaders as well as decision makers in organizations? Chidozie, I can start with you.
No, you can start with Roz.
Okay, any advice for students as well as for business leaders out there making decisions when it relates to education?
I think for the students particularly, carry on with the good work. Don't give up on your dreams. That's the most important thing. Somewhere along the line, you will get funding or you will get a support from somebody. You obviously, most of the students are very much on social media, and if they just go onto Google and to the internet, they can also find a number of companies. And the thing is to keep in mind that there are so many students applying, so keep at it. If you are determined, perhaps if you even need to, is go and take a letter formally to a company and say, hi, I'm here, can you give this to the HR person? If you're that determined to get funding from them or to get a job in the future from them, all those things set you aside. So, but my general word of advice would just don't give up on your dreams. Just keep at it. Help always comes.
Of course. And for business leaders?
Business leaders, well, I have a lot to say for business leaders. Obviously, thank you to all of our sponsors who are absolutely amazing. I love working with them every year. We have incredible teamwork between them and ourselves as well. And we've developed year-long relationships as well that go on and on. And yes, always just please keep in mind that the student needs a holistic approach towards what they need, and it's not just tuition. I know you've probably all heard me say this before, but a student does need to have a place to put his head, and also not to worry about where to find extra money for whatever they need, whether it's data and airtime, whether it's a medical thing or transport or what have you. Jobs are not easy as easy as they were years ago. There are more students today, and particularly around the universities, if they're on res or in the campus res or accredited accommodation, they can't go too far to work. But those places where there are work, they have students working there. So we have to take that into mind when you are funding a student. Please do look at a holistic approach. So that would be tuition, accommodation. Do also look at their historic debt. It's not a student's fault that they have historic debt. They didn't get funding. They carried on even with that financial burden on their shoulders. And we must try and help that as well. And if we can give them stipends, which is a monthly stipend, it's absolutely awesome to give them something. And so that would be just a good approach to what the students needs.
Thanks for that, Rose. I think it gives really good insight to companies as well as students out there in terms of what to take note of. Chidozie, from your side?
Ross pretty much said everything I was going to say. I just have, I can just add one thing, and this is to the students. I would like to say, please chat to universities. They are, like Ross mentioned, there's a financial aid office. They are the people there who deal with this type of scenarios of scholarships, bursaries, or any other financial assistance. But if you don't tell them that you need help, they wouldn't know.
Absolutely.
Course, yeah.
So I always tell them, when I get phone calls from students or even site visits, I tell them, go to your school, tell them at Fin Aid, they'll know what to do.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Chidozie. I think, we sharing that advice and we sharing that guidance, I don't think the students even know that.
Yes.
I think, the first point of departure is, going online searching, where can I get a bursary from, or bursaries. They don't really engage with the university, say that, do you have anything available? Is there any aid that you can provide? And I've seen it happen many times before. I mean, the first thing to do is just go online and search for it instead of approaching the university. And by then, I think a lot of individuals are aware of where they want to study. They just need to have the conversation with the university to say, is there anything available? And then, go through the process and then see how best they can get the funding. But to both of you, I really thank you for your time today. I think you've shared some really good insight. And also some good advice. I've also learned something new from you guys, so I appreciate your time. Roz and Chidozie is from our bursary team, and there's a few other team members. I think you want to mention them?
Yes, please do. They're a very valuable part. We have Samantha Vessels. She's been in our team for 4 years. Rosalina I can't get the name right, sorry. And we do occasionally have other people stepping in to help us, but our team is made up of 4 people currently, and we're all hard at work continuously and all very dedicated to helping our students and run the bursaries smoothly.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
To our viewers, I hope you enjoyed our episode today, talking about Human Rights Day, talking about education, bursaries, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities available. So we're hoping that you've enjoyed our session today. Do join us next month. We're going to be recording our next episode very soon. So we're hoping that you guys will be tuning in next month, and we will be catching you then. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Neil. That was lovely.